And
can,
if you don't take action, nothing's going to happen anyway. So when people work on their mindset, which I think is great when people, I mean, I do mindset stuff, but mindset alone is kind of BS, Garrett, because without the
Mm-hmm.
actions, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to produce results without actions. That's what is the
Mm-hmm.
source of results. So that's why it's
Yeah.
always going to go to an action to fulfill your vision versus, well, I have to just stop self-doubting. What is that? I don't even know what that
Mm-hmm.
even
Yeah.
means.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
no, you don't. You
Yeah.
don't even have to worry about self-doubt. If what you want to do is get your body in shape, you just go to the gym, whether you doubt it or not. If you do the physical actions, your body will respond the way the body responds to those
Yeah.
actions.
Welcome to The Ownership Game with Gary Montalvo. What would it take to get into the driver's seat of your life and leave your mark? The Ownership Game starts now.
I'm willing to bet that if you look at yourself, you've probably found yourself saying something like, someday I'm going to blank. And if you're honest with yourself, again, you probably have a laundry list of hopes and dreams that are scheduled for someday. And as my next guest will tell you, someday is not a real day on the calendar. I'm so excited to introduce you to Josselyne Herman-Saccio. She is a renowned coach and the founder of The Art of Being Unmessable with. With over 35 years of experience, she has helped countless individuals and entrepreneurs like myself achieve breakthrough performance and create the life of their dreams now, not someday. She's currently joining me from Paris, France, where she is fulfilling her someday dream of learning French and living in Paris. Get ready, because you are about to get a masterclass in getting your butt in action, and I can't wait. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show, my dear friend, Josselyne Herman-Saccio, the queen of unmessability with.
It's good to be with you. I'm so happy you're doing this.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So, full transparency, Josselyne has been my coach for several years now.
Yeah.
So we know each other really well and have become dear friends over the years. And
Pre-puppy, we know each other.
pre-puppy, pre-business, pre-relationship, pre a lot of things.
It's true. Actually, if
We've
we
been,
think about it, that's a whole other show. Yes.
yeah, we've been creating a lot over the last 2 years. Um, and when I decided to finally do this, to finally create this thing that we've been talking about for
Yeah.
2 years, you were one of the first people that I wanted to talk to, and the reason is because you're just living a really fascinating life for me right now. So Josselyne is currently joining us from Paris,
This is true.
and this has been
It's raining in
life.
Paris like it's raining where you are, so, we're not too far away.
We are, and this has been a dream of yours for many, many years. And this year, you picked up
May. Yeah, May
in
1st.
May. Her and her husband said, "Okay, it's time. The we're no longer talking about this. We are taking action." And you have been just out there living your dream, posting amazing photos about wine and cheese and bread and beautiful walks and running a thriving coaching business and still being a great mom and still being a great kid to your family here in the States and just really living your dream.
This
And
is
I
true.
think so many people want to be living their dream now, right? And but that's not how we relate to dreams. It's like a future someday thing. I'm working towards this thing. So I just love your story, and I love that you're doing this, and I think our listeners can learn so much from you in this realm. So let's jump in. Like, how did you, and because I remember talking to you, and you had shared that this is a dream someday. And all of a
Yes.
sudden, next coaching call, you're like, "Yep, we're moving to Paris in a few weeks, and we're no." I think that you told me like, "Oh, well, we're downside. We're
Downsizing. Yes,
your
exactly.
apartment." Yeah, yeah.
We had
So
to
talk
we had
what?
to get a smaller space in New York where our, two of our three kids are living, and they're basically like in college roommates, and they have a room for us that they're not happy that we're coming back to stay in when we come back because they like the autonomy of not, but they'll be happy to see us. But I was definitely like, okay, get ready for some roommates because we're coming, we're going back for the holidays and everything. So, I've been dreaming about living in France since I was 16. So that's 40 years of dreaming about it. And then when I married my husband almost 30 years ago, we started talking about it and we started coming here, and we would come every year. And in the last few years, it's become more than once a year, like sometimes 4 or 5 times a year. And it's always lived, as you say, Garrett, like a someday thing. Like someday we're going to move to France. Someday when we retire. Someday when we blah, 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 whatever, right? And I was leading a course that I designed called Creating the Foundation for Being Unmessable With, which is all about, establishing the muscles that are being unmessable with, which isn't about being tough. It's about being able to create versus react, right? And I was leading, I think it was session 3 or something like that. And I'm talking to people about their someday dreams. Like, what are some of your someday dreams? And they're sharing, someday I'm going to do this. Someday I'm going to start a business. Someday I'm going to do this. And I'm coaching them saying, someday is not a real day. Look at your calendar. You can't find it. It's not real. If you don't have a by when, it's not real. And like, I'm like literally having this whole conversation. And as I got off the Zoom call, I heard myself as if I'm talking to myself. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. You have a someday dream called France. Okay, no, what are we going to do? I talked to Michael that night. I said, are we going to do this or are we not going to do it? It's okay if we're not. Let's set a date by when, even if it's 5 years from now, even if it's 6 years from now, whatever. Let's at least have a by when so it's no longer someday, which is not a real day. It's like, let's do lunch.
Yeah.
It's not real. It's not a real lunch, right? So we looked together and we were like, let's do it this year. Let's do it in 6 months, it was 6 months away from that conversation. And we decided to go to France, to Paris, that next weekend, just for the long weekend. It happened to be like right around this time. It was like November of that year. And we met this couple. It's so perfect because once you commit to something, and you know this better than most people, right? Everything lines up to fulfill your intention. And so we came to Paris just for the weekend to kind of look around and see what neighborhood might we want to live in, when we're going to be moving in 6 months. And we had a friend, this couple that were friends with us, and we had lunch with them, and they were like, well, we're moving to Bordeaux and our apartment's going to be available. If you want to meet our landlord, you could just take over and have a lease with them. We didn't even have to look for an apartment. Wow. It was literally within a week we had an apartment. Then we got our visas. Then we moved. And then he's in the entertainment business, so he was going to take 6 months off. And the day after we moved here, the writers went on strike. And then the actors went on strike. So the 6 months ended up being he wouldn't have worked anyway. So it was perfect. It was like he didn't have to miss out on anything. It was literally like the universe going, you're welcome,
Yeah. And okay, so things started lining up, but let's also, it's not that it's convenient either. And let's acknowledge that, there's a certain amount of privilege, right? Like you guys have done well for yourself. You made really good decisions in life.
Money, yep.
You had a business already, established, or it's getting established, that you could move and do from over there. So there were some things in play. Okay, let's acknowledge them, but this is inconvenient. Right. It's not convenient.
It's inconvenient for my kids, but it turned out great. And it's mostly inconvenient for my parents who are 90 and 92. Yeah. And we're the ones who every weekend are out there taking care of stuff for them, fixing things around the house, making sure the shopping's done, So what I always say is, it is not possible to do it all, but it is possible to have it all if you get good at making requests and surrounding yourself with a team of people, because you on your own, and this is what I deal with at, in my coaching of entrepreneurs, especially when you're trying to get everything done yourself, you're looking down, you're looking in, you're managing. There's no magic in management. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
world of what I call, as you know, reaction versus the world of creation, which is more looking up and out at what your vision is. What is your dream? What are you fulfilling on? Not what are you doing and managing? What are you fulfilling on? And they're two different worlds. So in order to stay in the space of creation, you have to have an amazing team around you that is getting stuff done so that you don't have to do it all. And my kids rose to the occasion for that with my parents. They ended up, alternating weekends to go out there. So almost every weekend has been covered, other than maybe a couple. And then my
Mm-hmm.
parents, who had been resisting getting help during the week, all of a sudden got somebody for one afternoon a week, which was the best thing they ever did, but they didn't ever want to. And they figured they could, do without it because we were there. So it all ended up falling into place pretty powerfully, but it wasn't by accident. It was by design and by request. And that's
Yeah.
one thing that I find that people are not great at. They're not great at making requests at all. Most people are horrible
Mm-hmm.
at making requests.
Well,
But yeah, go
well,
ahead.
we look down on it, right? We kind of there's it's a badge of honor to be independent and do it yourself and push through it and tough it out. And I feel, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you have a lot of this mindset, right? Because you're the type of person who wants to go do this and go get it and make things happen. And so it's all mixed in there. So I think this conversation that you're really getting into, my independence, like listen up right now, open your ears, because this is some gold being dropped right now. Like we really do need people and teams and developing this artistry around making requests. So that's what you were
Yeah.
going to get into right now.
And for sure, with, the people that I coach, anybody who is up to anything worth accomplishing,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to require more than them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're up to cleaning out your closet, okay, maybe you could do that on your own. You know what I mean? But if you're up to building a company or having an impact in the world, or, doubling your income, or, your well-being, being able to really maximize your well-being. Anybody who's serious about their well-being gets a trainer or a nutritionist or a coach that can see what they can't see, so they can
Mm-hmm.
accomplish what they envision, and even beyond what they envision. One of the biggest things I've found is people don't even know what they want. They're
Mm.
not clear because they're so busy, as you say, dealing with what's happening. And entrepreneurs and successful people are really good reactors. They're great at reacting at what's coming at them. It's like, okay, let me put out that fire. Let me deal with this thing. But that's all in the world of reaction, survival, looking down, managing. None of that is the world of creation and magic and vision and dreams. And
Yeah.
it's critical to be able to see which world you're in at any given moment if you want to develop the muscle that I call being unmessable with. Being able to
Yeah.
stay in that space of creation no matter what circumstance you're dealing with. 3 weeks after we got here, my father ended up in the hospital. He's 90 years old. He's the sole caregiver of my 92-year-old mother, who has dementia and can't use her left side, so she's not really mobile. And he ended up having to have a pacemaker put in. My first thought was, I better get on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
Of course. I mean, because I have to, like, I'm the only person who can handle this, right? And it's like, but then I had to stop for a moment and look with my family, like, okay, do you need us to come back? Or
Mm-hmm.
is there a way for us to set this up? And my kids rose to the occasion. My sister rose to the occasion. And everybody was like, no, don't get on a plane. We've got this. And they
Yeah.
did. And it took,
Yeah.
me releasing my controlling, independent, entrepreneurial mindset to be able to expand. And that is a
Yeah.
big thing that you have to release to expand. You have to let go.
Yeah. What I'm getting really present to as you're speaking is the vulnerability that is required, I think, to let go of that control, to make the request, to open yourself up. um I think, you made a statement earlier that a lot of people don't know what they want. I don't find that to be true. I find that a lot of people don't want to admit what they want, or pretend to be confused about what they want, or avoid to get yourself there, and then you got to go into the scary places. You got to go into the making this, and it does require a certain vulnerability to
I think
give
you're
yourself.
spot on, but also I think if you really want something, but it doesn't seem possible, you hesitate to admit you want it. Like I
Mm-hmm,
remember when I was
mm-hmm.
little, I wanted to be a singer more than anything. But at some
Yeah.
point, I decided you can't do that. You can't do your art as your career. So I never talked about it because I would seem like silly,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm trying to be a starving artist. No, thank you. So
Yeah.
I just kind of put it under the rug, and that was that, until I was doing a transformative workshop and saw that you can't do your art as your career wasn't the truth. It was a belief I had, and I had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
evidence for it, but it wasn't the truth or solid or real, like this cup is real. It was
Yeah.
it was linguistic in nature. And I saw that, and in that moment it loosened its grip on me. And within 3 weeks I had a record deal. So again, once you disappear, like me saying that I had the someday dream, and then within a week we had an apartment. So it's the same thing with any dream that somebody has. And I didn't have any money back then, and I didn't have, stuff saved in a business or anything. I just had a dream to be a singer. And within 3 weeks, because you're freed up to take actions on something that seemed impossible. If something seems impossible, you're
Mm-hmm.
not going to act on it. Or if it seems too
So,
hard, you're not going to act
so,
on it.
so let's dig into that a little bit, because I imagine a lot of people are listening are like, okay, this sounds great. I get it. I'm gonna dream. Like, where do I get started? What would you? And we mentioned obviously people that are up to stuff get a coach. Um,
But sometimes
and
it's too
it
expensive
might
for
be,
people to get a coach. It's just not
yeah,
accessible
yeah,
for
and
everybody.
that's what I wanted to acknowledge. And obviously we're both coaches, and
Exactly. So,
and so it might seem like whenever I tell people to get a coach,
yeah,
it's always like it's a little self-serving. But we invest in coaching greatly.
exactly. I
Like,
have 3
like,
coaches because I'm actually
exactly.
interested in performance. I'm not interested in keeping things the way they are, incrementally growing them a little bit here and there. I want breakthrough performance for myself. That's why I can
Yeah.
provide it to other people.
Yeah. So but to your point, if you're working your way up to that, if it's not accessible to you right now, if you're not ready right now, what are some steps that you would recommend for people who are now getting started here?
Well, I mean, personally, I can just say I have a lot of free things available on my website
Mm-hmm.
because I am committed to touching as many people as possible and giving them the tools to be unmessable with. So I create things at a free level. I have my newsletter. I have, podcasts on my website so that people can, deal with topics. I have, a free promise game to exercise the muscle of creation versus reaction. I have $19 things, $47, so I have things that people who can't afford to hire a personal coach, and I do get that because and you don't want to hire just anybody. I mean, there are people who might be
Mm.
affordable, but, uh, uh, you know, you and I
Say
both
it again.
know, yeah, you don't want to hire just anybody, because coaching is something that. Now, I'm not saying don't give a new coach a chance, right? Because everybody needs to get
Mm-hmm.
developed. But I've been doing this for 35 years. So that's
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of people that I've impacted. So when you hire somebody like me or you're hiring somebody who has some mastery in the world of coaching. If you hire somebody who just got a certificate at such and such coaching academy online, they might have a real commitment, but they also might not charge as much. So that could be a way to get some one-on-one coaching at a smaller rate so it's accessible. But I would do my research, and I would, interview the coach and find out where they're thinking from. And, because everybody's got to start somewhere. So it's not,
Yeah.
don't hire those people. I'm not trying to say that
Yeah.
at all. Some of those people are great. And in fact, I train some coaches to be better coaches because they are committed to delivering the goods. But it's like hiring a personal trainer. You probably wouldn't hire a personal trainer who's, 100 pounds overweight and, isn't living what they teach. So
Mm-hmm.
back to how we started this conversation, that I'm living my dream. Yeah, no, that's my job, is to live my dream. and be the example of what I'm training people in. Because if I'm not doing that, if I'm like, oh, you could have the marriage of your dreams, but my marriage is horrible, then how is that? That's
Yeah.
not real. That's just not a real coach as far as I'm concerned. That's kind of snobby, I think. I don't know if I like that I said that. But it's kind of true, though, right? I mean, you're not going to hire a money coach who's bankrupt and in debt.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. No, and I think I hear you, and I think for us, the reason you're passionate about it is because it's personal for us, and we see this all the time. We see the impact of this all the time, so it's something that we're passionate about. So I 100% get it. Okay,
Oh, wait,
so
one more thing. Sometimes before you get a coach, if you don't, if money's an issue, you can follow coaches on
mhm,
social media that you admire and get a lot of free stuff from them and start implement, because almost every coach that I know that has any kind of public presence has workbooks and things you can download and videos that you can follow them on YouTube, and so there are ways to develop yourself before you hire a personal trainer. You can get videos on YouTube of this workout or that yoga thing or whatever. So it's definitely possible. If you're committed to developing yourself, there are ways to do
mhm,
it without having to spend thousands of dollars.
yeah, committed, and I do want to caution people here because I 100% think you're right, and it requires a lot of rigor on your part to fly solo like this,
Exactly.
because you can't see what you can see. You're fish doesn't know that it's in water type of thing, right?
Yes.
So a lot of times you have these resources and you have these tools, but if you're still operating inside of your pre-existing this conditioning
Thinking. Yeah.
and it yeah, and a lot of our beliefs, we can't see them, where they're hidden from us. There are things that you see right there and you go, oh, I know I do that. But there's things that you know the other day, Jay and I just finished dinner, and he started teasing me because I do I get a little hangry sometimes. And apparently when I get hangry, I have this routine that I do where I'm like, oh, and then I eat, and then I go, ah. And then at some point I make a whoo.
Like a
And
little baby.
like I make a sound, and he started walking through the routine, and I was like, what are you talking about? I do not do that. And then a few minutes later I went, whoo. And I caught myself.
Too funny.
So it's an innocent thing, but the point is that we also do these things that we can't see, and so
That's why I
having
have a
this type of
coach.
having this dynamic is really helpful. um and if you were creating steps for someone, like what would be the first step, I think, to, let's say, I have this dream that I'm working on, and I see I'm listening to this. I see that there's an opportunity for me to start living this now, right? That I've been operating. Like if you're taking anything away from this conversation, it's that if catch yourself if you're speaking about your future as a someday thing.
Yes.
Right. Like, I think that's step number one. Like if Jocelyn and I want you to walk away from anything, is
Disappear
that
someday.
shifting.
It's not real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even a let's do lunch. I mean, if you're with somebody and you go, oh, we really should do dinner. Good. Pull out your calendar right
Yeah.
then and
Yeah.
schedule the time, because
Yeah.
otherwise you're living in a world that's not real. And a
Yeah.
lot of let's do lunches are like incomplete things, like loose ends hanging out there. And you can't live the life of your dreams in an unreal life. You have to
Yeah.
actually be powerfully related to reality. So the first step, going back to your question about steps, is to clarify what you want. And again, honing it, clarifying, like, really, what do I want really? What's the vision I have for this area, whether it's my career or my finances or my well-being or my life in general, right? So once you clarify the dream, then the question I would ask is, okay, what's going to mess with you in fulfilling on that? What is going to
Mm.
get in your way? What's going to stop you from taking the actions that you need to take to fulfill that vision. And most people do see what gets in their way. They just don't have a way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can identify those things, then I ask, okay, what is the physical symptom that you're being messable with? So if you say, well, what messes with me is self-doubt, right? That's what'll mess with me. Okay, how do you know you're doubting yourself physically? Like, do you get tightness in your chest? Do you get
Mm-hmm.
redness in your face? Like, there's something that happens physically when you're being what I call messable with or reacting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that might take a little bit. You have to kind of go on a hunt for that over a week and sort of notice moments where you're getting messed with or stopped or thwarted, and notice what's happening in your body so that you can be aware of the red flags that you're not in the space of creation. So once somebody's,
And
yeah, go ahead.
why physically?
I'll tell you
Like, can
why.
you break that down a little bit? Yeah.
Absolutely. Because and again, what I call being messable with, you could look at it as being in a reaction or, kind of surviving or looking down, all those different ways of thinking about it. When that's happening, it's a physical thing that's happening in your brain. It's called an amygdala hijack. So what's happening is fight, flight, freeze, and you
Mm-hmm.
are dealing with what's coming at you, like bullets are coming at you. They're not real bullets, but they're life bullets, right? So you are reacting to that, and that's happening back here in your brain. Creation happens in this part of your brain, in the frontal cortex. So you have to literally shift physically your headspace, for lack of a better term. So the first thing you need to see is physically what's happening, because you will catch that quicker than noticing that you're doubting yourself. If you're like, my red flag is my
Mm-hmm.
chest. I get tight in my chest and my breathing gets shallow. I'll see that much quicker than realize that I'm, nervous about something. I'll see the
Mm-hmm.
physical thing because that's like, you know, real. The rest of it is
Mm-hmm.
sort of conceptual. So the minute my chest starts getting tight or my breathing I stop, and I have a hack for it. I physically get up and look in the other direction. So I have to physically interrupt what's happening physically because I'm about to go down a road. So if I don't put the barrier up, I'm just going to go down that road, and then it'll be too late to see that you're being messable with, and you'll just be down that tunnel, and, may the force be with you. It just is very hard to come back when you're too far down the road. So if you can intervene before you go down that road, right when that physical symptom is happening or the red flag, then you can kind of bring yourself to neutral. That's not sufficient, though. I mean, most people, that's what they think mindfulness is getting to neutral, like bringing yourself back to
Mm-hmm.
being present. But if you
Mm-hmm.
notice, you're going to end up right back down that road because it has so much more muscle. It's pulling you in that direction. So what you have to do in the methodology that I train people in is pre-create another road. You pre-create a road down which you're going to go rather than the self-doubt road in this example. So it could be anything. I mean, you might pre-create being in action, or you could pre-create being courageous, or whatever you create. But you got to create it before this whole thing is happening, because in the heat of the moment, forget it. You're in crazy town, so you've got to have it
So good.
already ready, and then if you have being courageous as another road, you can, in that moment of centering yourself, you can ask yourself, okay, what action do I need to take right now that'll demonstrate being courageous, or that'll bring forth courage, or that'll, presence the world of being courageous. And then you just act on that. So that has you starting to go down that other road from a neural pathway perspective. Also, you're
Mm-hmm.
rewiring your brain.
So good. So good. So many good nuggets there. I wanna just pull something out, because what I was really present to as you are sharing and training us, the mastery of hacking your brain
Yeah.
and hacking yourself. Because I feel one of the pitfalls that we often get stuck in is, I wish that was different.
Yeah.
Something's wrong with me for being this way. For something, I'm getting tight in my chest. I'm getting anxiety around this. Something's wrong with me. I want to be the type of person that this doesn't happen to. And so now that becomes the focus.
Right.
The
Well,
judgment and the assessment and about that become the focus. Go ahead.
I call that reacting to your reactions. So you
Yes.
have this reaction, and then you have a reaction to your reaction, which sends you
Yes.
deeper down the tunnel of that
It's a
road.
rabbit hole. Yeah,
Yes,
you're just like
exactly.
you're spiraling now into this
Oh,
thing.
now you're out of control. Forget it.
But what you're displaying is, yeah, I'm okay. This is fine. I am this way. I'm getting tightness in my chest. Fine. But what am I up to? What am I committed to? What do I want to have happen? And what tools do I have available to navigate that, to retrain my brain, to
Yes.
develop a new muscle? So there's just like a commitment to the work instead of a commitment to the what's wrong
Fixing
with
your
me and
chest
why.
tight. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going
Yeah.
to fix about that? There's nothing to
Yeah.
fix about that. It doesn't even really have anything to do with you. It's automatic. It's like your fingernails are growing. And, oh, I wish I didn't have fingernails that grew. I mean, what are you talking about? It's just
Yeah, exactly.
automatic.
Yeah.
You know, that's what,
It's,
or like, I mean, you have how much hair you have. It's like going, well, oh, I wish I had more hair. It's like, well, you know, your hair grows the way your hair grows. What are you going to do about that? Now
yeah.
what, you know? So
That's exactly one of the examples that I use. I go, I'm bald. This is a bald model. I don't know what to tell you. Like I can sit here and be upset about it, but I'm
exactly. I'm
bald,
I'm
right?
5'7". I'm not 5'10". It's like, you know, it's like literally as pointless as going, God, I wish I were 5'10". If only I were 5'10", then I would, you know, what are you talking about? Your chest
Yeah.
is tight. It doesn't mean it's who you are. It doesn't mean there's anything. It's just that's what's happening. That's why I say look at the physical rather
Mm-hmm.
than what we make the physical mean. Like, oh, I'm doubting myself. What if, who am I to do this? And da da da. All that stuff is nonsense that gets you all wrapped around in a wad of drama that you can't do anything about. It's just thoughts. It's like you're not thinking them, they're thinking you, you know? So
Yeah.
it's as automatic as your fingernails growing.
Yeah. Such a good conversation. And when you really develop that awareness, I feel like that is the freedom. Right?
It
Like
is,
that's the
yeah.
real freedom that when you develop that awareness that I'm not, I'm not what's happening right now. I'm not my thoughts. And yeah, there's somewhere I want to be. There's a goal that I have. There's a commitment that I have. What can I do? What can I work? How can I train myself? How can I take a step towards that? How
And
can,
if you don't take action, nothing's going to happen anyway. So when people work on their mindset, which I think is great when people, I mean, I do mindset stuff, but mindset alone is kind of BS, Garrett, because without the
Mm-hmm.
actions, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to produce results without actions. That's what is the
Mm-hmm.
source of results. So that's why it's
Yeah.
always going to go to an action to fulfill your vision versus, well, I have to just stop self-doubting. What is that? I don't even know what that
Mm-hmm.
even
Yeah.
means. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't. You
Yeah.
don't even have to worry about self-doubt. If what you want to do is get your body in shape, you just go to the gym, whether you doubt it or not. If you do the physical actions, your body will respond the way the body responds to those
Yeah.
actions.
Yeah. And that breakthrough that you're looking to have, that skill that you're looking to learn, it's not even really available to you until you get in action because up until that point it's just theoretical.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like
all concept.
I could sit here and train you on how to ride a bike and give you all the diagrams and give you all the theories, but until you get on that bike and fall a few times and implement the lessons from that, this comes up a lot with when I'm teaching clients to sell, and they're trying to learn how to sell before actually getting on
Getting
the
on a
court
sales
and
call. Yeah,
selling. And
exactly.
it's like, no, I mean, I could give you a couple things, but then the real work comes from you being on the court, practicing,
Well, it's
learning,
like talking about having
debriefing.
sex, you know? It's like until you get on the court, it's all conceptual, and then you
Yeah.
discover what works and what doesn't work, you know?
Yeah. Okay, so specifying the goal, specifying, getting really clear about you want, getting it in action in a calendar,
Yes.
even if that is a future day, that's okay. But what is the day,
And
right?
what has to happen in order for that to get realized? So if you have a goal goals are always in time. If you have a goal to buy a house, but there's no buy when, it's not a real goal. Dreams can be a little bit more spatial, like a dream for freedom, but that's a little bit more spatial. Goals live in reality. So if you have a goal to start a company or start a podcast, right? So you have this goal to, have the podcast, then there's got to be actions that are going to happen to fulfill that thing in reality. Actions are like your bridge from vision to reality. So what I would always do is, and this technology, because we've worked together, is I'd go, okay, so when do you want that to happen? Okay, 6 months from now. Fine. So what would have to happen 4 months from now for that to be a done deal? What are the milestones that then you can then create an action plan to produce those milestones? So if it's, get an account with Riverside to tape my podcast. Tape is not probably what it is, but whatever. I'm old, so I remember tape. So you do that by a certain date and you put that in your calendar so that it's in reality, not on a to-do list. To-do lists are a recipe for overwhelm because they're never really done because you keep adding to them. So if you have a list, if you like to work with lists, fine, but put a by when by each one and then transfer them into your actual calendar. Anybody who doesn't function with a calendar, I would just say, good luck.
You're insane.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I would say. You're insane.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely straighter than I'm just like, okay, well, good luck. I'm not the right person to work with because
there was once upon a time that I did not operate in a calendar, a long time ago. But what I want to say about that is, I learned to.
It's a muscle.
Because it was the necessary thing that I needed in order to manage life and manage my goals.
Yeah. And that's, as you know, one of my workshops that's like, $19 or something is my calendar workshop called Design Your Days, because it's not just about putting things in your calendar. It's about what are you creating with that to do. So what is the context in which you're going to the gym? Is it you're creating well-being? You're creating vitality? Because if you only just put to-dos, you end up in that world of reaction. Also, you're just reacting to your calendar. So I always start with, okay, creating partnership, meeting with my assistant, creating intimacy, date with my husband, or whatever you're creating. So start with what you're creating and then have the to-do, because the vision is not the vehicle.
Yeah.
And you need to have both to be able to produce the kind of results you want to have.
Very good. So now I know that we've inspired a bunch of people to get in action. We've given them so many things they can implement on this call. I mean, this is a really, I hope you guys were taking notes, because this is just
or re-listen to it. Yes.
Or re-listen to it, come back. So I think something that we should just leave them with as we start to wrap up is you're going to have failures. Right? You're gonna have breakdowns. Things are not gonna go the way that you planned them a lot of times. And I think we should just talk about that a little bit, because I feel like that's where a lot of people go off. I know a lot of people start off, they make the goals, they do their plan, they put it in their calendar, they do the thing, and then the first time that something goes off, or the first time they can't keep an appointment, or the first time they don't meet a goal, they go,
never mind.
It didn't work.
Yes,
it didn't work. I listened to Josselyne and Gary. I did all the things. I put it in the calendar and it didn't work.
Well, I would say it's the same exact process when you have a breakdown as what I just distinguished in terms of the steps, because the breakdown is going to be whatever's coming at you. Like what you don't meet a measure or whatever, you get on the scale and you haven't lost what you thought, whatever. You're either going to react to what's happening and be messable with. So again, you got to look for the tight chest or the red face or whatever. That's why you're on a hunt for those red flags, because that's going to be there when you have any result. Even if you win the game you're playing, you have a reaction to that. And sometimes, like I have a client who was launching a new program and he had a goal of a certain amount of people in the program by this date. And the first email he sent, he got more responses than he expected. And then he just sort of goes, oh, good. Okay. So I don't have to do the other emails. That's a reaction to a result versus staying with your word, with your plan, with what you were going to do. And then he ended up missing the mark because he stopped sending the emails. The email is what produced that result in the first place, So keeping an eye on those red flags so that you can catch yourself, stop, and go down your pre-created road.
Yeah. And I think, what's sort of coming to mind for me is be careful of this idea that you are just going to walk up to the plate and hit a home run. I'm the same way. I'm not interested in struggling. Like, I just want to hit a home run right off the bat, like without ever practicing, without ever going on the field, without like ever doing the work. I just want to hit a home run.
Yeah.
And it's so naive. It's really just naive and unrealistic and unkind to yourself when you just put that kind of pressure, that kind of expectation. The reality is, anytime you're taking on something new, especially when the game is really big and really juicy, there is going to be things to learn. You
Absolutely.
shared
Even if it's not something new, there's things to learn.
Yeah.
You could be a master marketer like you are, and you go to launch a campaign and it isn't effective. Okay, so now what? What is the source of the results you're getting? And that's a whole world of performance to train, get trained in, is like, what is the source? What are the actions that are ineffective? Because you might be in action, but they're not effective actions. So you've got to dissect performance and be able to see, this is a higher level that we're talking about being at the source of performance and your results. That's a whole game of being sourceful in the area of
we'll do that. We'll do that podcast. We'll do another episode.
That's right,
just on that topic alone.
It's true. I could spend a year talking about it. I'm about to spend a year talking about it with people because it's like elusive for people. But if you were looking at a little kid learning how to walk, you wouldn't expect them to just get up and start walking. That's insanity. They would get up, they'd fall down, they'd get up, they'd fall down. So you have to give yourself the same grace when you're taking on a new game. I just started practicing yoga. I can't do the back bends and I can't do the thing. And, you have to be conscious and graceful and compassionate for where you are. And it's not a race with someone else. It's like you're developing yourself. So that has a lot of power when you're compassionate with yourself.
And not only will you not have the expectation of a child just being able to walk, you would never speak to a child who felt learning how to walk the way that you speak to yourself.
We're terrible with ourselves.
It's like we're terrible, right? So I think that's a great place.
If you had to learn how to walk now, you'd be so screwed because you'd fall down like twice and you'd be like, never mind. I'm just going to lay here. I'll just look at shoes for the rest of my life.
It didn't work.
It
didn't work. Well, thank you, Josselyne. This has been a lovely conversation. So many goodies. If you're listening, definitely. Josselyne, what's your website?
The website is theartofbeingunmessablewith.com, but I'd love to give a gift to your listeners, which is really giftfromjoss.com, Joss, giftfromjoss.com. And that's my free 5-day promise game where you can learn how to use your words to create the future versus describe what's happening.
Woo!
Game
Fire.
on.
I love it. So that's a great place to start. Those of you that are looking to up-level your dream achieving muscle. Well, thank you so much, Josselyne. It was a pleasure. Would you please come back?
Anytime, I'll do anything for you. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy. This is like the realization of a vision you had last year, so I'm so happy.
It really is, and I thank you so much for your support and everything you've done to help me get here. So this is really exciting, and let's record an episode from Paris. How about we do that?
That sounds. I'm in. I am in. You had me at hello.
All right, my friend. Take care.
Take care.
Josselyne's work brings to light a very important lesson. Your life is now, and you're gonna die someday. I don't say that to be shocking or insensitive, but I do say it to instill some sense of urgency in you. We live under this illusion that time is an endless resource and that you can just keep kicking your dreams down the road. But tomorrow is not guaranteed, and all you really have is right now. Whatever that dream is, take your calendar out right now and set a date. Don't worry about all the details yet, just start by setting a date. Then you can start working backwards and figure out all the things that you need to do to achieve it. You don't have to have that sorted out. You just have to get in action and take the first step. I promise you the rest will reveal itself, but only when you're in action.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Ownership Game with your host, Gary Montalvo. Make sure to like and comment on your favorite podcast platform, as well as subscribe so that you never miss an episode.